Good morning. Welcome to another Gimbal Friday update. I hope your Friday is a great one. I know mine is going to be. I'm looking forward to a good weekend with Connie, and we're going to go up in northern Indiana and explore Amish territory a little bit. That's on our itinerary. I hope you can enjoy the beauty of summertime wherever you find yourself today. Here's our disclaimers. The main thing during these dog days of summer, stay hydrated. It's dangerous out there when it gets hot like this. And so be sure to drink plenty of water, wear your hats and your sunscreen and all those things. What's summer look like for you? Are you a big fan of summer like Doug said he was last week, or are you more of a fan of the changing seasons? That's kind of what I've become over the years. I don't know if I get older and will hate the winters like a lot of people do, but I'm kind of a 90 day at a time kind of guy. I like each of the seasons. The summer season is equally as interesting and fun as the others. Keep in mind when you see the disclaimers here that all of this is opinions. This is not um, the facts of life. This is just the views of myself and others at Gimbal Financial. So if you see something here that you disagree with, that is what makes the world spin. So I hope your day is a good one. I'm going to take this disclaimer off and just kind of chase some rabbits today and see what you think about that. I was asking Amanda earlier if there were any topics that she thought needed uh, addressed, and one of the ones that she suggested was a comment I had made earlier in the week to her about Indianapolis and the sports activity here that we've had here. And check this out. I think I found this to be really interesting, and I thought I'd offer some views and some opinions because that's what I do. Here are, according to Perplexity, Perplexity is an AI search engine that I highly recommend. It seems to be less politically motivated than things like ChatGPT or the Google AI search engine. They seem to bias their answers, which is really a squirrely idea. But what I asked it was, what are the 20 largest sporting events in Indianapolis over the last 50 years? And the Indianapolis 500 comes around every year. It's been going on since 1911. You've got the NCAA Final Fours have been here several times in the last 50 years, as well as the women's Final Four. We had one Super Bowl in 2012, NBA All-Star games in 85, and in this year, and just a variety of things going on down the list there. The one that she asked me to talk about was this number 12, the U.S. Olympic trials. Our family decided to go over to Lucas Oil this week and to watch the Olympic swimming trials. And that was just such a spectacular time. I just came back and told her what a good time that we had and how much fun that was, and what just kind of a motivating factor it was for me to watch those young athletes out there. And it still stirred some controversy in my thoughts too, which I'll jump into here in a minute. But as I was looking at those lists of sporting events, it also made me think of some fun ones that I'd had the ability to go to. Number 20 on that list was the NFL Scouting Combine. And if you look, there's somewhere on YouTube, and if you're interested, I can find it if you can't, a picture of me at the Scouting Combine that my son Caleb, when he was little, wanted to race me. They had some of those interactive activities, and he wanted to race me on I think it was a 40-yard dash. And I got about 30 yards into it as an old guy. I wouldn't even say I was dashing, but it was as fast as I could go. And I blew out my hamstring and I start tumbling. Well, those crafty children that you might have, mine took that and had Chuck Norris shooting me. I think it was Chuck Norris shooting me in the leg and making me fall. To made it a pretty comical video that's out there somewhere on the internet machine. And so that one was a lot of fun to us. I've been to a number of the Brickyard 400s. Those have been fun. The One America 500 mini marathon, I've run that a couple times. I don't think I've been to the tennis championships, world basketball. The Pan Am games were fun when they were in town. But one of the things I was going to talk about too was the NBA All-Star game in 1985. And it'd be hard to rationalize my opinion about what happened there, but we went to the slam dunk contest as well as the game. And the Indiana Pacers had a fellow by the name of Terrence Stansbury that played for them and who was in the slam dunk competition. And the types of dunks that Stansbury did were unbelievable to me. And he lost to a young athlete named Michael Jordan. And I was a Michael Jordan fan at the time, but I felt like that the NBA gave that title to Jordan over Stansbury in an unmerited way. I thought Stansbury actually did better dunks at that competition than Jordan did. You'd have to go back and watch the videos and try to place yourself back in that time horizon to formulate your own opinions, but that's what I thought being present at that. And when I look at the number 4 on the list, there was the 2012 Super Bowl here in the city, and what a fun time that was. There was a zip line stretching down, was that Capitol, I think, that people could pay $20 or whatever and go zip lining through downtown Indianapolis. And the 500 is always something interesting. What I wanted to talk about was I am going to be honored later this month to speak at a youth organization with a number of youngsters in their 20s. And before I go speak to them later this month, I had sent this book to the organizer for each of the people that are going to be attending. It's called The Emperor's New Clothes. And I wanted them to read this before I came and spoke, because I really didn't need to speak if they read the book and they understand the essence of the book. It's a Hans Christian Andersen book written, I don't remember when he wrote it, but it's 44 pages long. And the copyright in this goes all the way back to 1949, but I think it's well before that. So you'd have to kind of Google that to figure out when he wrote this thing. But it's a great book. And the reason I wanted the youngsters to read this book, because the principle of this book that it tells me is that you are always the adult in the room. There's never another adult in the room. You can assume that people that have old looking bodies are adults in the room, but you can't always assume they're going to act like adults in the room. So I'll give you a couple examples of this. One was as I was at the swim trials, I was considering a podcast I watched last week with Mike Rowe and Riley Gaines. And I was listening to Riley Gaines. She is a swimmer for the University of Kentucky. And the NCAA, they were the adults in the room, told her that she wasn't supposed to say anything about the guy that was wearing a swimsuit and going into the ladies' locker room, tongue twisted here, and swimming against the ladies. And so when I had listened to that podcast, I thought that's really bizarre that there are no adults in the room to suggest that this isn't right. And then as I was watching the Olympic trials, and I'm taking this from memory, I didn't see I didn't lock in my brain the actual one, but I think it was the 100-meter freestyle that the best men swimmers were about 4 to 4.5 seconds faster than the best women swimmers, that both of those qualified for the Paris Olympics. And as I was thinking about those young ladies that were swimming in college athletics this year, and they were told that they had to swim against a man who's in a women's swimsuit, but they couldn't say anything about it. I just was thinking, who is the adult in the room? Who's going to stand up for the ladies in that situation? And the reason I was thinking so aggressively about it is I've spent a lot of time doing things for your benefit, learning more and more in my trade as a financial advisor. I've spent a ton of time, and I don't boast about that. I don't spend um, time acting like a martyr about that. But I also, as a youngster, spent a lot of time practicing for athletics. And when I thought of those ladies that were jumping in the pool down at Lucas Oil, and the literally thousands and thousands of hours that they had to jump into swimming pools, who knows, at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning as they started their two-a-days, all the efforts that they put into that, then to be denied their championship because of some type of political correctness that doesn't make any sense whatsoever to anybody, but nobody was standing up for the ladies. It just made me more kind of convinced that somebody has to be the adult in the room. And that's kind of one of my takeaways from the swimming. I don't know if that's what Amanda had in mind when I told her how excited I was. I just thought, my goodness, these ladies did such a phenomenal job swimming, and they just bring such a joy in watching their expression and energy and enthusiasm. And even though they could swim against the guys, the best of the best were still 4 seconds faster than them. And to suggest there's nothing different, I just think there's no adult in the room that's managing the situation. And so that's the idea that I would give you for the swimming and just being the adult yourself, because it's a big deal. Let's talk about the markets, though. That's I guess the importance of that idea as well is on the back of my card. I write the 5 principles I think are most important: think differently, buy wisdom, like what you do, live adventurously, and generosity wins. And I believe that the opposite of wisdom is foolishness. And so the foolishness that would let grown men swim against women is just not very wise to me. So anyway, I'm done with that. I'll kick that to the side. Let me talk to you about what's going on in the market today. The little index that I keep tabs of myself and just monitor it to get a feel for what's going on in the markets is something I've been doing since the summer of 2021. And the database Market Surge that we use has 10,203 issues that it monitors. And I just take a weekly update to see how many of the holdings that are in those 10,200 positions that are trading below a moving average. And a moving average is a process. If it's a 21-day moving average, we're going to take the last 21 days and average out the price of this stock or this index and see how many of the stocks are above that or how many are below that. And then the 50-day would be the same, and the 200-day. And so the 200-day is giving you kind of almost the last year, what's the average of this thing. And when you have a big rally in the market, a lot of times you'll see most of the stocks are not trading below their moving averages. But when you start to see division in the market and disruption, you'll see a little more divergence, and you may have the indices hitting new highs, but you'll see more and more stocks trading below those moving averages. And so where I highlight in yellow, that's where more than 50% of those particular holdings are below that moving average. And you can see over the last few weeks that the shorter term, the 21-day moving average, more and more of those stocks are trading below that average. And the 50-day last week was the first time that it got below that since the April, early May time frame. And so what we're starting to see is maybe a little bit of the dog days of summer, not only in the temperature, but in the underlying stocks that are out there in the broader market. I'm going to show you an example of the indices. So here is the NASDAQ. And you can see the NASDAQ, if this line right here is the 50-day moving average, and this is the 200-day moving average, and then this green one is the 21-day moving average. You can see that the index itself is well above those averages, even though the stocks that comprise that, a lot of them are below this first one here, the green one. And if we look at the S&P 500, you'll see a similar picture there. Again, this is the 200-day, the 50-day, and this one is the 21-day moving average right here. So even though more than 50% of the stocks are below this line for their individual stock, the indices are still holding up higher than what is maybe going on in the real surface of the marketplace. And so what that tells me is it's probably a time just to be very cautious as I'm looking at the market and I'm looking at individual stocks. The broader market, when you hear that term, the broader market is going to be smaller companies that aren't as big a names as the things like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, Netflix, those sort of companies. Those magnificent seven that they mentioned, they're all approaching new highs, and they're driving 20 to 40% of those indices values. And so what you might notice if you don't have all your money in the big stocks like those seven or in the S&P 500, if you have individual holdings, you might even see your performance doing substantially less in the marketplace today. One of the other activities that's something that we keep an eye on is the VIX, or the volatility index. And let me show you that real quick here. So the volatility just says, hey, what is going on in the marketplace? What should I be paying attention to? And when it gets, historically, when this VIX gets below 20, it's usually a little safer place to be in the market than when it's above it. And I stepped this back to 2023 because we had a big sell-off in the 2022 timeframe that bottomed out in 2023. And you can see that this thing was well above the 20s and trading up into the mid 30s. And then if I take it back even to 21 here, it spiked all the way to 85 when the mismanagement of the COVID happened. And so those are things that we look at on your behalf to try to keep you posted on how the market really is doing, besides what the indices are just indicating right now. And so if we look at the current VIX in the marketplace, you can see it is trading well below the 20 threshold that I mentioned, and it's been pretty consistently below 15 for most of this year. So there's not been a lot of volatility. And one of the research analysts that we subscribe to is suspecting that we might see a 50% increase in the VIX in the months ahead, which would be I think in essence, probably something reasonable to expect as we're going towards an election later on this year. I think the last thing, I didn't have a ton of information to throw at you today. The last thing I wanted to throw out to you was we are consistently sending you ideas in the anchor. And if you get the anchor and you have questions, if you have things that you would like addressed better, feel free to reach out to us. My email is ktyner@gimbalfinancial.com. And if there's other topics that we're not hitting in there, please hit us up with suggestions of things that you're concerned with. I think as we're going towards the end of 2024 with an election year, I think the importance is just to make sure now, while the volatility is low in your account, to realize that if you're going to need some money this year, now might be the time to take it out in case things get more volatile later, that you won't have as much money at risk. If you don't need any money and we're going into the election, keep in mind the longer term perspective is really the best way to navigate the uncertainty that usually pops up during the election years. It's hard to know what's going to happen as we go into 2024 election cycle, it seems to me that it's probably going to be as normal of an election year as we saw in the last two election cycles, presidential election cycles, which to me says towards the August, September time, we'll probably see that VIX pick up quite a bit. I am thankful that you choose to take time to join us every Friday. I'm here to encourage you in any manner that I can. And I trust that today is going to be a great day and that you have a great weekend. Doug should be back and joining us next week. And in the meantime, you have a spectacular time.